Welcome to a Faithful God podcast. I'm your host, Tammy Rotzel, and today on the show, human trafficking survivor Drema Ogletree is joining me as she talks about her journey and everything we should know when it comes to human trafficking. So grab those earbuds and your favorite beverage and join me for today's show. Well, hey friends, happy Wednesday. How are you? Listen, January is National Human Trafficking Prevention Month. And today on the show, I have human trafficking survivor Drema Ogletree on as she shares her journey through human trafficking and all the things that she is doing and accomplishing now, which is so dang exciting. She also shares with us a lot of things, quite a few things here that we need to know when it comes to human trafficking, things that are so important for us to be aware of. Listen, I say it all the time, and I know that every one of us are called to a different mission field. Not everybody is called to the mission field of human trafficking. However, I do believe in my heart that every single one of us needs to be aware of human trafficking and the fact that it is happening in every community around the country, around the world. And you're going to hear in Drema's story. I mean, she is from right here in locally to me in Williamsburg, Virginia, in that area, and was trafficked right there in Williamsburg. And Williamsburg is a place with many very affluent people, a very rich community, and a lot of tourism and stuff. So you're going to, she's going to share her story through this. I do want to let you know that if you have little kids in the car with you, this may not be a good conversation for you. There are some things that Drema is very honest about, very open about, and there are some things that she's going to say that probably isn't good for young ears. So if you are with young kids in the car right now or listening at home, might be better off to hit pause and come back to it when you're by yourself. So friend, I'm not going to make you wait any longer. On with my conversation with Drema. Well, hi Drema. Thank you so much for joining me today and welcome to the show.
Hey, it's good to be here today.
Well, I am just so honored. And so this month is, as this airs, this month is National Human Trafficking Prevention Month. And so I just really am truly honored that you said yes to being on here, and I appreciate your time. Now, I always like my listeners to know kind of how we met or how we know each other. So we really don't know each other. We met each other very briefly back in October at the A21 Walk for Freedom, and you were someone who stood up and spoke, and it was, by the way, when you spoke and everything, it was just so powerful and just such a, kind of one of those stories that it's just really hard to believe. I think when it comes to human trafficking, I think it's hard for all of us to get our head wrapped around the fact that this is happening. And if I'm not mistaken, this for you happened in Williamsburg, yes?
Williamsburg, Newport News, Hampton.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's go ahead. So obviously you are a human trafficking survivor. Praise God for that. I am praise God for that. But if you will, tell us just a little bit about yourself, and then we'll go ahead and get into our conversation.
So I'm a mother. I'm a grandma. I just had my granddaughter was just born 3 weeks ago.
Oh my
Yay.
gosh, Drema, congratulations.
And I
Oh,
have a 4-year grandson, and they all live with me. And
that
yes,
is that is awesome. That is
um,
so awesome.
I go to school full time.
Mhm.
Hold on. Um, I go to school full time.
Mhm.
I graduate in the spring, magna cum laude, with a 4.0 GPA, as a certified substance abuse counselor assistant. And then I'm transferring to Purdue next fall to complete my bachelor's. And with my credits and my work history at the psychiatric hospital I work at, I'll be able to complete my bachelor's in a year. And then I'm up for corporate promotion as soon as I complete my bachelor's. I just got my official promotion as the staffing manager of one of the only freestanding for-profit psychiatric hospitals in DC.
Oh,
Um, and I worked there for 2 years, almost 2 years, less than 2 years. It's only been about a year and a half, and I've gotten 2 promotions since I've been there. Um, and I work 60 hours a week and go to school full time and take care of the kids. And my youngest is 14, and I recently got complete custody of him away from my who is also my husband,
right.
and Free Kind and Amara Legal Services, who's a human trafficking a legal service in the DC, Northern Virginia area
Mhm.
that helps human trafficking victims with legal cases, especially in divorces and custody from their traffickers. So they helped me with that, and we're in the process of working on the divorce from my
Mhm.
trafficker. So that's in the works as well.
Okay. Okay. So you just said a couple of things that I really want to unpack. Um, but before we do, if you will, you start wherever you share whatever you're comfortable sharing. But if you'll explain a little bit about what went on, and yeah, just kind of like what you did at the A21 walk and such. So,
So, you know, I was going to school full time and I was a single mom. My father and my grandfather had just passed away, and I met my husband, and I was in a very vulnerable state. He became very physically abusive. Um, and it was really bad. And then when I was getting close to where I was going to graduate, I had a couple semesters left of school and stuff. He got very intimidated by that, very intimidated by my independence, and he forced me into smoking crack cocaine. Literally forced me, like punched me in the face and held me by my throat up against a wall, and forced me into smoking crack. And but that took all the pain away.
mhm,
And at that point, I didn't really care anymore what he did.
mhm,
Our youngest son had been born, and when this happened, and then, and he had always joked around that his life ambition was to be a pimp. And I
okay.
always just kind of thought that it was a joke, like,
Mhm.
and whatever. And it was definitely, now looking back,
Sure.
you know,
Yeah.
I should have seen more of the signs, or I should have tried a little bit harder to get away. But um, I had been through so much trauma previously
Mhm.
that I just wanted the pain to go away,
Yeah.
and I wanted to be loved, and um, it was um, just horrific. And
Yeah.
then he asked me to marry him. And I was like, well, okay, if we get married, then things will get better. And they didn't, they got worse. And I remember we moved out of my mom's house and he wanted us to get an apartment. And I remember when he turned the bedroom doorknob around and locked it and locked me inside. And he would send the kids to my mom's for the weekend or my sister's. And he would have people pay him at our bedroom door to let them do whatever they wanted to me.
Mhm.
And I did try getting away a few times, and he almost killed me,
Oh, Dreamer.
literally. And then, a couple times he had me arrested for domestic violence, which is crazy.
Right.
The police arrested me, and I'm covered from head to toe in cuts and bruises, and he has a burn mark on him or something, or a cut on him, and they arrested
And that's
me.
it. And that's it. Yeah. Yeah.
And And then a couple times he involuntarily committed me to a mental institution because we were married. He was able to do that, and he took off with my kids. Um, so I knew I couldn't get away from him.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is like I was on probation at the time. And there's so many people who could have helped me along the way. One time I went to the emergency room and I was covered from head to toe in bruises. And he thought that I had an STD because he had been sleeping with somebody else. So he sent me to go get checked, and they thought I had been raped. So they called the police. The police ran my name. I had a probation violation and they arrested me from the emergency room. Another time I went to the emergency room and I had a concussion that was healing, another concussion. And a concussion that was healing, and he had punched me in my lip, and my tooth had gone through my lip, and it was 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'd walked up to the emergency room, and I had a permanent crack in my skull. Um, and they didn't do anything. They just stitched me up and sent me on my way. Um, the same thing with like the police officers, they were so uneducated at the time.
Mm-hmm.
One time I remember that he had taken me to a hotel room in Newport News, and he ripped off the sweatpants that I was wearing, and it was winter time. So there was like slush on the ground, and he sent me outside. He poured a beer over my head, and he sent me outside with just a white t-shirt on that went down to my knees, no shoes, no socks, no pants, no coat, covered in beer. And a police officer saw me standing on the corner, pulled over, asked me if I was okay, but I could see him looking at me and the cop from like the hotel window. And the police officer let me go back into the hotel room. And, for a very long time, I was very, very angry with the police.
For
I was
sure.
very angry with the emergency department. I was very angry with a lot of people because I was like, how even my probation officer would see me with bruises and everything else, and she didn't violate me for getting high because she knew he was beating the crap out of me. Um, and but she didn't do anything to help get me out of the situation.
Right.
And then he got arrested for something completely unrelated to me and got time in prison. And I was actually able to get away from him.
Mm-hmm.
I got sober. Um, I completed successfully completed probation, but I had all of this trauma
Yeah.
and there was
For sure.
nobody there to like really help me deal with it.
Yeah.
And so I continued to use on and off for about 10 years. Um, and it wasn't until 4 years ago that I finally made my peace with God and my
Mm-hmm.
higher power.
Mm-hmm.
And when I
Mm-hmm.
finally made my peace with God,
Mm-hmm.
um, I said, okay, enough is enough. Like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
done. I'm
Mm-hmm.
done. I don't care if he kills me. I don't care what happens. I don't care if they put me in prison for the next 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
God has his plan for me. And whatever happens, I have to be at peace with.
Yeah.
And I have to let go of this resentment because I just kept thinking, like, if there was a God, why would he allow
Yeah.
me to get hurt over and over and over again? Like, was there something so wrong with me
Yeah.
that God was punishing me for it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And once I came to peace with the fact that there's good and evil in everybody,
Mm-hmm.
and those people have a choice of whether they're good and evil. And once I realized that it really had nothing to do with me, um,
Yeah.
then I started to slowly come at peace with that. And once I reclaimed that, it
Mm-hmm.
it my life became much better. I started to fight for my life, for my
Yeah.
kids to have a life,
Yeah.
for my grandkids to have a better life. And now I have 4 years of sobriety and I'm divorcing my trafficker and I took custody of our son from him and I'm in control. I have my own place. I have my own vehicle. I pay my bills. Um, I'm graduating college on my own. Like that's not something that he did for me. That's something that God allowed to happen for me. And that's because judges, and really, if Free Kind wouldn't have fought for me so hard
Yeah.
and been in that courtroom with me every time, and if they wouldn't have, originally, I didn't even know that was being trafficked
Right.
until the class at the jail. And, you know, I really just thought that this was something a husband was allowed to do to his wife, that
Oh,
I was his property and I was allowed to do what I had to do what he said.
yeah.
And I didn't know. And then finding out that you've been trafficked is a whole nother set of trauma that you go through. It's a whole nother, because you realize that basically you've been raped
Yeah.
over and over and over again. And that's a very traumatic
Yeah.
thing to realize that, oh my God, these men and women came in and raped me.
Mm.
And my husband, the father of my child,
Yeah.
the person who I'm bound by under God and
Yeah.
law,
Yeah.
who is supposed to protect his family, allowed men and women to rape me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Oh, Drema.
so then that brought on a whole nother set of traumas that
Of
I had to
course.
overcome and endure.
Hmm.
And, with the help of, and God bless them because Free Kind had no idea anything about addiction when they were still the Virginia Beach Justice Initiative. And,
Hmm.
I wasn't their first client, but I was one of their first. And
Okay.
I was definitely one of the first that they really dealt with the addiction part of and the trauma part of it.
Okay.
And so I taught them a lot
Mhm.
because, I was their little guinea pig. That's what
Sure.
that's what Joy likes to tell me. I was her little guinea pig. Because the thing that people don't understand is that nobody just wakes up one day and says, "Hey, I'm going to be a prostitute," or wakes up one day and says, but then once you realize, and I don't that okay, I'm going to say this as clean as possible. But
Yeah.
once you realize that your vagina has that much power and can produce that much money, it's
Hmm.
hard to go to a job and survive off of a job that pays you $8 an hour. How are you
Right.
supposed to support your family off of that? And
Right.
then you have a criminal record, and nobody wants to hire somebody with a criminal record. I never thought that I would get the job that I have, because I have 19 felonies and 8 misdemeanors.
Yeah.
Who's
Yeah.
gonna hire me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Luckily, there was a clause, and really it's because of me that they changed their policy about hiring felons at my job because, and they don't regret it at all because
Sure.
I worked my tail off.
Yeah. Yeah.
But but they did have to change the policy because
To do that. So,
but um, you know, the thing is you, people think a lot of times, and even I did, is,
hmm
oh, a prostitute gets what she deserves. She wants to be out there. And oh,
hmm
a drug addict has a choice. They could just stop using, like go to treatment and get your shit together.
right. Right.
And then I became one.
Right. Right.
And
And
I
you,
was like, wait
yeah.
a minute. That's not even how it is. It's not,
Mm-mm.
it's something that I've had to tell my kids and my mom and my sister and my family. And they know and they're supportive. I never wanted to hurt the people who loved me.
Yeah.
I I wanted to die.
Yeah.
I I didn't want to be in pain. I didn't want to cause anybody else any pain.
Yeah.
Inadvertently, I hurt a lot of people and my mom and my kids the most.
Sure. Sure.
but of course I didn't want to do that. I mean,
No, no.
I hurt I hurt the people at Free Kind as much as they tried, as much as they
Yeah.
helped me. They probably came and visited me at four different jails, four different times before I got it right.
Yeah.
And it hurt them because they couldn't understand. They didn't understand at first. And then every time they wanted to pray, and I was like, man, y'all can save your prayers for somebody else. Like,
Sure.
God is not listening to you about me,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my
you know?
gosh.
And, but no matter how much resistance, it was that kind of persistence and love
Mm-hmm.
and dedication that they gave me
Yeah.
that made me realize, like, wow, wait a minute, I can trust these people.
Yeah.
Wait a minute,
Yeah.
somebody does love me.
Yeah.
Okay, wait a minute, maybe God is listening somewhere.
Yeah.
And that was a very powerful turnaround for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and
Yeah.
it's just been uphill ever since. And
Yeah.
now I'm a huge advocate. I did a story for WTKR News Channel 3.
Oh, okay.
Um, I did the Walk for Freedom. I was interviewed by NBC National News on peer recovery specialists. On their website, there's a whole story
Mm-hmm.
that NBC National News did. On peer recovery specialists and how important it is to have fellow peers. And
Yeah.
at first it was very traumatizing. Even still, when I hear my own story back to me, like I
Sure.
can tell my story and it's like I'm outside of my body telling
Mhm.
it.
Yeah.
But once I hear it back, or once it's like all said and done, I'm like,
Mhm.
wait a minute, that happened to me. And that's what a lot of survivors don't, they don't want to know that it happened to them.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
don't want to know. And I recently got into a relationship, my first relationship
Mm-hmm.
in sobriety. Probably only the second man I willingly had sex with
Mm-hmm.
in 20 years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he has a hard time with my story. He doesn't want to hear anything about it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
He
yeah.
My kids, my older kids especially, they know a lot of what I've been through, but
Mhm.
even they
Yeah.
they don't want to hear it.
Well,
Um,
it's such a heinous, evil crime. And
mhm.
to think that it happened to someone they know, they love, um, that's got to
Mhm.
be impossible. And
Well, and
I
the man
mean,
that raised them as their father.
yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure.
People think that it's like, oh, just at truck stops or somebody gets kidnapped and kept in a basement. But you don't realize like what is happening to the person right next door to you.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Um,
You know,
and
go ahead, go ahead.
I was telling you, I believe I was talking to you at the walk,
Mhm.
and even though I'm Caucasian,
Mhm.
a lot of girls are terrified because everybody who's white is the police, and nobody wants to get their pimp in trouble, and you
Right,
don't want the drugs to stop coming, and you're scared to death.
right,
And there's just so much that people can do to help.
right.
You recognize the signs, you look.
Mhm.
And if you see something, people are so scared to get involved. And
Yeah.
it's like, no, you don't have to be scared to get involved. It's a very, very simple to have a bunch of pieces of paper already in a little Ziploc bag
Mhm.
in your car with
Yeah,
a Google text number, a text now, a WhatsApp app number,
yeah.
and to just go to somebody and say, I'm not affiliated with any law enforcement agency. When you are ready to get help, call me. And of course, you're going to get people who are going to scheme you and scam you and ask you for $20 or want you to get them a hotel room for the night.
Mhm.
Or, you have to be really careful, of course,
Yeah, yeah.
even. even me knowing the situation, I won't just give money to somebody. I'll go in and to Dollar Tree and buy them hygiene, or,
Right.
I'm like, hey, you need a place to go take a shower. Cool. But I'm not going to give somebody money because, you know, um,
You just,
you have to be careful. I'm not going to help
yeah,
support your addiction, but I will help you get into a shelter. I'll help you
yeah,
do something. But it's very important for people to know I'm not related with any law enforcement
yeah,
agency. You
yeah,
are ready. I will help. I have resources that can help get you out.
yeah,
But the person has to be willing. I mean, and on top of that, society in general has to do better, because once you have paid for your crimes, once you have served your time,
hmm,
even right now, with the job that I had, if I lost my job tomorrow and my grandchildren and my children needed to be fed and clothed and housed,
yeah,
and I know that prostitution is the only way and the quickest way that I could make money for them,
yeah, yeah,
I am going to do it because
yeah,
men are going to buy me
yeah,
regardless of how I look or anything else.
yeah, yeah.
And
You know what? So I'm so glad you're saying all of this, and there's so much here that I want to unpack. So let's address what we're talking about right now. But I've got several things that I really want to touch
okay, go
on.
ahead.
So yeah, yeah. So okay, so right here, this is one of the things. What I really want our listeners to understand, and forgive me because I'm supposed to be the strong friend sitting here beside you, but I'm getting all teary-eyed because I can't believe that the women, children, even boys, men are going through this. And I
Uh-huh,
mean, in our country, in our world, this is not okay. But what is so important to understand, there are so many different ways to fight human trafficking, and
uh-huh,
legislation is one of those. There's many different
uh-huh,
ways. And so legislation, we need people fighting these laws because
uh-huh,
of course, when you're in there, you're going to wind up with these records because of the
uh-huh,
things that you are forced to do. And
uh-huh,
then you come out, and like you said, you can't get a job. You can't find a place to live. I mean, you
uh-huh,
can't support yourself. And I was, there have been several other podcast interviews I've listened to. There have been several books I've read. And the same thing happened. Another survivor leader who wrote a book, Rebecca Bender,
uh-huh,
and one in her book, which she went back once I know once, it may have even been twice, because, and I remember her saying, really, God, this is what you have for me. You deliver me from trafficking. And now I'm so poor, I can't even pay I can't provide for my child.
uh-huh,
And so what alternatives do you have? And that is so
uh-huh.
not okay. Like, that is so
Right.
broken in so many
Uh-huh,
ways. So when you were started saying and explaining, telling us a little bit about yourself and all the things you're doing, I mean, I got goosebumps from the top of my head to the tip of
mhm.
my toes because Drema, look
Uh-huh.
at you, girl. You
Right.
come out of something that you should have never had to have been in, to no fault of your own, and look at what you're doing. That just makes me, I just want to shout from the rooftops, you
Uh-huh.
go, girl. Like, I am so happy for you. and
Right.
and what I heard in your story when you were saying, look at this, I'm so sorry.
No,
But what,
okay.
when you were introducing yourself, but I could just hear it, how excited and how proud you were,
Mhm.
rightfully so, about all these things that you have accomplished. Because for some of us that have never gone through an experience like you have, yes, we're excited and happy about these kinds of accomplishments, but they mean so much more to
Uh-huh.
you. And they are,
Right.
we can't take that for granted. That is just so important. And look at you go,
Uh-huh.
girl. I mean, And look how God
And it's
is.
because somebody gave me the opportunity, but not
Yeah.
everybody is as lucky as me. So now with the
Yeah.
company that I work for,
Yeah.
they own over 300 hospitals in the nation. They have a corporate position ready for me. They can't terminate me now because they already hired me with my record as a peer recovery specialist.
Oh,
They opened the door for me, but I worked my tail off. But not everybody gets that opportunity. And,
yeah.
companies, like, I know that it's taking a chance, but there's programs, federal programs
Yeah.
that people don't even know about. There's federal grant programs that offer insurance to companies who hire convicted felons, where they can
Really?
basically an insurance grant of like $10,000 or something like that. So if they hire a convicted felon and
Uh-huh.
they come in and say they clear out the cash register and steal from them, they
Right.
have an insurance on that. But why not take that chance? Like, because
Wow.
everybody deserves a chance to make more than $7. Can you live off of that?
Yeah,
Anywhere,
absolutely. Absolutely.
anywhere, and
Right.
take care of your kid without having a partner, without, because that's one of the biggest things for men, women, children who are in trafficking,
Hmm.
is that you're broken and you're
Hmm.
told that you need somebody to survive.
Yeah.
And when you get out, the last thing you want is to have to need somebody.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And then, God forbid, you should have any kind of drug charges,
Yeah.
distribution charges. You can't get food stamps. You can't get Section 8. The Section 8 waiting list is 2 years long.
Yeah.
But there's plenty of private renters who are like, hey, I'll take a Section 8 voucher.
Right.
I'll
Good.
take a Section 8 voucher, but the waiting list to get one is 2 years long. So what are you supposed to do?
Wow.
And then half the time you go to some of these shelters and you're just as bad off because there's nothing but drugs and pimps and everything else. You
Yeah.
can't get student loans if you have a distribution charge, if you have certain drug charges, you can't. And so then you take the charge for your pimp who has, because you know you're going to get less time than him. So you
Right.
take the charge from him and you get a distribution charge, but now you can't do anything else with your life
Yeah. Yeah.
because of something that you did in the midst of something has to change. Like, the government, the legislation, they have to see. Um, they, I'm still, and I've been sober for 4 years now, doing all of
Congratulations.
these things,
Yeah.
and I'm still on probation because I owe York County court fines,
Oh
because I owe Newport News. I can't get my license back
my
yet because I owe all these fines. I have to make all these payment plans to pay back. But if it's a matter of me paying my light bill or paying the court fine, then I'm going to pay my light bill.
God.
Like,
Absolutely.
even with
Absolutely.
job, I still have bills to pay and it's expensive to live.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
living paycheck to paycheck. And, like, what, there's no, okay, you've done this. I mean, of course, I could go apply for a restricted license, but then you have to go to each of the courts and all this other stuff. There's just so many things that hold a person back
Yeah.
that it's like, at what point are you going to give me a break? Like, at what
Absolutely.
point do I deserve
Yeah.
to have a break?
Yeah. You
And
know,
I'm still on probation, so I can't even ask for a pardon or for my record to be expunged by the governor until I'm off probation.
the system, it baffles me how broken it is, how backwards it is. To to put things like that on a survivor when you're desperately trying to get your life back and take care of yourself and contribute to society. And it just breaks
Mhm.
my heart. Another thing though, I want to mention is, so I think most people in the country, at least in the country, have heard of Williamsburg because of Colonial Williamsburg.
Right.
And so, Colonial Williamsburg is a very popular place. It's a wonderful place. It's a wonderful place. But my point is this: if you think trafficking is not happening in your area because you live in a nice area,
You're
you
wrong.
100% wrong.
The tourism, the money is better. The tourism is better. Um, the
So,
perversions are even worse. I mean, what the men will do to you out there is, I mean, I could tell you
Drema,
stories that would make your toes curl.
Drema.
What rich men will pay to do to you and then go home to their wives and kids. It would make it, you would have nightmares if I told you some of the things that these rich men who are patting your backs at all these parties in Williamsburg and who are walking with their family through Busch Gardens and Christmas Town and who are going to all the historical sites, the things that they will do to you in a hotel room and then go back to the hotel room of their wife like nothing happened. And it is
So you when
everywhere.
okay, so when you're saying tourism, and by the way, at the A21 walk, we had the police officer that stood
Mhm.
up and like I felt like it was great information that he gave us.
Absolutely.
I felt like I just wanted to stand up and just cheer as loud as I could that the police are really taking note of this.
Mhm.
And I know there are still so many cracks, but I love to see that. All
Well,
right, this.
one thing that with domestic violence, they
Mhm.
finally, in the last, what, 5 years or so, passed the law that the police can press charges if the victim doesn't. Because a lot of times a wife doesn't, or a girlfriend or whatever, doesn't want to press charges on her husband or her
Yeah,
boyfriend or whatever.
yeah,
They need to do the same thing with human trafficking.
yeah,
If you know beyond
yeah.
a shadow of a doubt that there is a man, woman, or child that is being prostituted in the room, and they do enough stings. If you know that a foreign person is being and paid $2 an hour to work,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but they're scared of getting deported, so they're
Yeah,
not going to say anything, the police should have the right and prosecutors should have the right to charge those people
yeah, yeah,
even without, if as long as they have enough evidence, even without, because even if they lose the case, it's out there. It
yeah,
shows people that somebody is paying attention, and you might have gotten away with it this time, but you will not. But
yeah,
now the charge is on your record. So how many times can you be charged with something without being convicted of it?
yeah.
At the very least, even if it's a no-win case, even if you have no victim to give an impact statement, the
Mm-hmm.
very fact that you are prosecuting people who are working at restaurants and working at Busch Gardens and working at these places, and then they're here on work visas. I mean, because it's not even just sex crimes, it's work crimes, it's labor crimes, it's all kinds of things
Yeah,
that people are being exploited for every day. Children working at restaurants because they can pay, they can feed them and that's it.
yeah.
If you know that the crime is happening, you shouldn't have to have a victim to press the charges. And in
Absolutely.
domestic violence crimes, and it couldn't have been but within the last 5 to 10 years, they changed it where the police could actually press the charges if they believe that an assault happened, or
Yeah.
they could charge both people.
Right.
And that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Charge the prostitute and charge the pimp if that's what you have to do.
Right. Right.
But at the end of the day, there's only so many charges that a person can get
Right.
before a judge or another prosecutor because your record follows you. So
Right.
if you charge a pimp 16 times with aiding and abetting human trafficking,
Mm-hmm.
then on the 17th time, a judge is going to say, huh, you've gotten away with this 16 times, not in my courtroom, not today.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're
Absolutely.
so they need to change that as well.
Yeah.
The power needs to be with some of the police officers, and as much resentment as I had at one time, you can't be resentful towards people who are not educated.
Right.
And
Right.
when there is no there wasn't education for a long time about this topic.
Mm-hmm.
And police, a lot of officers don't know how to deal with,
Yeah.
because those are things that happen in other countries.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
And they can only deal with what they know.
Yeah. Yep. That's right.
And
That's right. And
and so yeah,
yeah.
but those things need to be changed. But the power, especially for those officers that really want to make a difference, because there are police that really they don't make a whole lot of money either,
Yeah.
just like teachers.
Yeah. Yeah.
They do it
Yeah.
because they want to help people, they want to teach people, they want to make a difference in somebody's life.
That's right.
And so you have to trust the same people that you're giving the power to uphold justice and
Yep.
safety, some of that power too. Now, there's good and evil in everybody. So there's bad cops, there's good cops, there's people who can be
That's
paid off, there's hotel owners who can be paid off, there's all kinds of things. But all it takes is one person to make some kind of a difference.
yeah. 100%. What is it? What is that saying? I'm really bad with quotes, but um, we can't, let's see, one person can't change the world, but to one person, you can change everything. I just messed
Mhm.
up that quote. I just totally
I
messed
know.
that up. But yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yes.
So, you know what? And so you said something that just opened up like an aha moment for me. So I've known for several years now, since I've joined the anti-trafficking movement and tried to educate myself as much as I can, but I've known for a long time like big sporting events, the
Mhm.
soccer, like right now as we're recording, the big soccer thing that's going on, the Super Bowl. Like when
Mhm.
I first found out, and still to this day, it blows me away because all we think about, like for me, we are a huge football family. And so we
Mhm.
think about the Super Bowl and this is so fun and this is so great. But then there's a massive element, I don't know that element is the right word, but human trafficking is happening during these big sporting events. And
100%.
yeah, and so you said something today that I didn't even think about, but you were saying that even these people who are coming to Williamsburg, these men who are with their families on a family vacation, and then they're doing this on the side and then going back to their families. So I'm assuming that's exactly how it's happening or very
Mhm.
similar to how it's happening at the Super Bowl.
Mhm.
Like
Right.
people are going
And
to,
then even think, if you're even thinking about like bachelor parties,
yeah,
bachelorette parties,
yes.
who do you think these strippers are? Who do you think the strippers are?
See, and that's what, and you said this earlier too. And until I started, educating myself, I too thought that prostitutes chose that profession. I
Mhm.
really did. And I've now learned that though, no, that is not the case. And for the very few
Mhm.
that have chosen it, they wind up in human trafficking situations
Mhm.
because it is just so
Mhm.
rampant. Rampant doesn't even begin to cover like how
Well,
big
and you
this
want to
is.
feel loved.
Of
That's the
course.
thing.
Yeah.
And
Who
a pimp,
doesn't?
as much as a pimp will beat you down,
Mm-hmm.
he will also tell you you're just having sex with them for us. But the
Yes.
sex with me is different. I love you.
Yeah.
I'm taking care of you. It's okay for you to give your body like that, but
Mm-hmm.
I really love you. And I'm using this money to take care of us. You're doing something great. And they know how to sweet talk and all these other things.
Yeah.
And then you get a broken child who's been in foster care system, who has no family, doesn't know their family, and they just want a family. And then you have this person who's telling you all the right things
Yeah.
about a family,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they become your family, they become your world,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
you would do anything to keep that,
yeah.
because for the first time you feel like somebody is taking care of you.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh, Dreama. And I'm going to ask you a question. And if this isn't okay, please let me know. But um, are you the only person he was trafficking at this? at the time, or were there more?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Hmm.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Okay. Okay. All right. So you touched on something, and this is something that you and I talked about because you were explaining to me. So I want to kind of come back to this because because I want people, I was just looking at my notes here, sorry, but I want those, those who are listening to say, you know what can I do? Number one, I am a huge believer in we are all called to a different mission field. God doesn't have us all in one mission. So I
Right.
understand human trafficking may not be someone's particular mission field. However, what I believe with all of my heart, because this is happening in every single neighborhood around the world, and it looks
Hmm.
different in every single culture,
Hmm.
because it is a 150 billion, not
Hmm.
million, $150 billion a year industry. I
Hmm.
think everybody should be educated on it. And so you said to me, what we can do, you were saying even just to get a little piece of paper or something like that. And we
Hmm.
can go and get either, like you said, get WhatsApp or a Google phone number, which, by the way, I
Hmm.
have to be honest with you, I still haven't looked that up. I have WhatsApp, so I haven't looked that up.
It
But
really is just a way for you to not have like to have to give out your personal phone number, because nobody want, even at work with
yeah,
my patients and my clients, like I don't give out my personal number.
100%.
Um,
Right.
because you also have to have a downtime.
Right.
So the one thing that I would say is, especially to like, you work at convenience store, people who
Mhm.
work at the 7-Elevens and the Wawas and the hotels, and have a phone number there that you can call.
Mhm.
If you suspect something, report it. Me personally, I would rather be wrong
Sure.
than a child die.
Absolutely. Mhm.
If you thought that a child, like, this is completely off of human trafficking, but there was a story in the news where this boy was being kept in a cage out back of his house, and the neighbors brought him food and water into the cage, but didn't call the police. What?
I don't even know what to say about that.
And reported it. And that's the thing. Would you rather be wrong? Because let's be honest, if social services or somebody else comes and investigates something and there is no signs of abuse, then what's the worst that's happened? It's wasted an hour of a parent's time to prove that they're not neglecting or abusing their child.
Right.
It's wasted what? An hour of an employer's time
Yeah.
to prove that they're not hiring undocumented immigrants and that they're not paying them $2 an hour. Like, so
Right.
really it's wasted what? It's
Yeah.
wasted maybe an hour of somebody's time.
Yeah.
But it's taken you 30 seconds. And I know people don't want to be like, oh, I don't want to open up that can of worms. No, open the worms.
Yeah.
Open the can.
A
Open
hundred
the can.
percent. Uh,
That's the number one thing that people can do. If a
yeah.
girl walks into your 7-Eleven and she's bleeding and she's bruised and she's looks hungry and it's the dead of winter and she's wearing shorts and a t-shirt,
Hmm.
like, give her a call. At
Yeah.
least call the police. Pay attention to what kind of car she gets into. Something.
Yeah.
Make that phone call. If
Hmm.
you're a hotel owner and you notice on the cameras that there's repeated traffic going in and out of somebody's room,
Hmm.
make the phone call. Because even if nothing is going on, what have you really done? But you
Yeah.
could life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the one thing that people can do. I swear, if people, there were so many people that could have saved me before it happened.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
many people.
Yeah. And I'm hearing that there's more education happening in emergency rooms in the hospitals. I
Mhm.
hope
Not
that's true.
enough.
Not enough.
I hope so
Yeah.
too. But
Yeah.
I don't think that
Yeah. Yeah.
I I don't think that anybody can ever be too educated.
A
I
hundred
just
percent.
I think that everybody has to be There
Yeah.
has to be more and more and more and more education. And
Yeah.
we have to be telling young men and women in schools, our
Yeah.
LGBTQAI plus young men
Yes.
are very vulnerable. They're
Yep.
very vulnerable
Yep.
and very easily could be picked up and set and loved
Trafficked.
loved. I put
Sure.
that in quotes
Quotes, quote unquote. Yep.
by an
Yep.
older man.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So what you're saying is we get either WhatsApp or
Mhm.
a Google phone number, which is totally free. So that way someone doesn't get our
Yes,
personal phone numbers.
right.
We write it on a piece of paper, we do little business cards, whatever. We see someone out and about that
Mhm.
just something doesn't look right. So what we
Mhm.
say to them is, I am not affiliated with the police in any way. If you
Mhm.
need help for anything, give me a call. And you
Mhm.
literally just hand them or send me a text. So you hand them
Right.
that card and
Mhm.
that's it. And
Yeah.
then if they call you, and I know we had this discussion, but I want to make sure we um, address this. So if you do this, someone contacts you, who should we call and say,
Free
hey, this,
kind, free kind,
okay.
988. There's
Did you
the
say nine?
national
I'm sorry. Did you?
98 988 is a national suicide mental health hotline.
Okay.
Now, even if it's not something that's suicidal,
Yeah.
they would be easily able to pull up resources.
Okay.
I think you can go onto the Virginia Coalition of Human Trafficking website. They
Okay.
probably have resources. Um,
And
n-
is there a national human trafficking hotline?
there is, I'm not sure the phone number, but there is a
Okay.
national human trafficking hotline.
Okay. I'll get that
Um,
in the show
and
notes.
really, honestly, if like, if you're in an area that like, that you've seen things,
Yeah.
or there's truck stops or something like that, or just
Mhm.
where you've seen things. I can't recall if it was you and your mother had, or somebody I was
As
talking
a
to
it was. Yes.
it
I
was, yes,
totally forgot about that. But yes, you're
yeah.
absolutely right. It was my
Um,
mom. Yep.
you
You got a
can
good memory.
100% leave some papers or get some business card. Business cards aren't even that expensive anymore, and
No.
leave them at the stops and say, hey, if you see anybody that needs some help,
Yeah. Hand
give
this
them my
out.
card.
Yeah.
If you don't want to call the police, or if you don't want to get involved, give them my card, or you call me.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Mhm.
Okay.
I mean, those are simple little things that can be done. Free Kind, believe they have a 24/7 number.
Is
Um,
is Free Kind just in our area or is that national?
so I believe that it's like Richmond,
Okay.
Williamsburg, Chesapeake, Virginia Beach,
Okay.
Norfolk. I believe
Okay.
is, but they do help people from all over.
Okay. Okay.
And they
Okay.
have connections with people everywhere too.
Okay.
They they built connections with people in other states
Yeah. Okay.
and stuff like that.
Okay.
Um, even something as simple, if you don't want to get involved that way, there's other ways you can get involved. You can say, okay, look, I don't want to be an advocate. I don't really want to hear anybody's story. That's too traumatic for me. I don't
Yeah.
want to do that. But if you have somebody who needs a ride across state lines overnight and you have a shelter for them to go to,
Yeah.
I'm more than willing to go and do that. If you need somebody to drive, if you
Yeah.
need somebody to appear in court and say, hey, Free Kind will take this person for bond, and you're not actually signing your name, you're signing Free Kind, or you're signing in organizations or whatever. Like,
Oh,
there's so many
wow.
different things. Or if it's simply um there's somebody at the jail who's reached out and there's nobody to go and visit them, and you can just go visit them and read some Bible verses with them. There's so many things that you can do that don't involve you traumatizing yourself
I
by
had
having to hear
no
people's stories.
idea or that never occurred to me to contact the jail. And so what do you say, hey, if you have some human trafficking survivors,
Mhm.
human
Or
or
even
would they be
or you can even go on to like the online court case lookup. You can go on to There's a lot of Williamsburg, York County, and Newport News and Hampton all have like the daily arrests. If
Okay.
you see somebody who was arrested for prostitution, just
Ah,
reach out to
of
them and say,
course.
"Hey, can I come visit you?"
Okay. Okay. I
All you because
never.
it gives their name. You
Mhm.
call the jail, you write them a letter. I mean, even something as simple as that.
I never even thought about that. So, um, I would assume that at times, I mean, you said Free Kind visited you 4 different times, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, understanding that if you were to choose to do something like that, they may not really want to listen right now. They may
Mm-hmm.
not be in the place, in the space to do that. But hey, we are called to walk in love. We are called to share
Mm-hmm.
God's love, and not with preaching or anything like that, but just showing
Right.
that we care, that we
Mm-hmm.
see them, that, hey, we're here and yeah, we're just here as a visitor.
Right.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
it was the very last time that Free
Mm-hmm.
Kind came to see me, and
Mm-hmm.
it was that fourth time.
Okay.
And that's what it took.
Okay.
Because you're not just dealing with trauma, you're dealing with addiction, you're dealing
Yeah.
with low self-esteem, you're dealing with all kinds of, and not even just women. If you see males that have been arrested for prostitution,
Okay.
if you see, we focus on women and children a lot. And I
Yeah.
think even myself forget about men.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Like,
Um,
it's so easy. As a matter of fact, to be honest with you, I was talking to someone not long ago, and right at the moment, I can't even think of who it was. Where was it? But he said to me, I'm so glad I didn't have girls. And I said, and it was about trafficking and such. And I said, it's not just happening to girls, it's
mhm,
happening with boys too. Not to mention, number one, it's happening with boys, but also another way to fight human trafficking is by stopping the
edu-
demand. So those
mhm,
boys and girls and women, whatever, but that are watching porn and
mhm.
purchasing sex.
Well, and
And that's
also opening people up to talking to their children more about sex.
a
It's so
hundred.
taboo
Yeah.
in so many families.
Yeah.
But let's face it. I mean, it doesn't matter how Christian you are, how
Hmm.
much you raise your children to save themselves until marriage.
Yeah.
It's about raising boys to think, I was very lucky that even though my boys were raised and their father was so abusive, it can
Uh-huh.
go two different ways. They either become abusers
Yeah.
or they become very overprotective.
Yeah.
And boys really believe
Hmm.
like that woman is somebody's sister, mother,
Yes.
brother,
Yes.
child. And it's raising your children to think, boys to think, okay, women are not just objects. And if
Absolutely.
I raise my kids, if all you want is sexual contact with a woman, tell her, don't make her think that you love her. Don't
Yes.
like, I'm not naive enough to think that you guys aren't going to have one night stands.
Right.
Like,
Right.
I'm not dumb.
Right.
Like, but don't let her think that you love her.
Uh,
Don't manipulate her. Don't
yeah. Yeah.
don't treat her like crap.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
when you
Absolutely.
hit a woman, you're hitting somebody's mother, you're hitting somebody's sister, you're hitting somebody's daughter.
Yeah.
And it's about not being so scared to go into schools and go to kids when they're hitting 13, 14 years old and start having. I mean, my 14-year-old son came home with hickeys on his neck a couple weeks ago. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's being
Yeah.
scared, it's not being scared to have those conversations.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
Like, we have to stop sheltering our children so much
yes.
that when they go out into the world and they go away to college
Hmm.
and their dorm mates like, hey, let's get some strippers and some prostitutes, like I'm gonna de-virginize you tonight,
Yeah. Yeah.
that they know what they're really buying, that they know what they're
Yes.
really doing,
Yes.
that they know
Yes.
what price they're really paying. Because not one of those men from Williamsburg or anybody anywhere else that paid $1,000 to do the things that they did to me thought about what it really did to me.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
price was much higher than the little bit of cash that they paid.
Yeah. Oh my
And people
gosh.
don't think about that.
No, they don't. They're just thinking, they're selfishly thinking of themselves, and
And
that's
at
it.
what price and at what damage are we doing to our children to send them out into a world completely uninformed of
Yeah.
what is really going on because we want to shelter them and keep them safe and keep them cozy and protect them. But
Yeah.
what are you really protecting them from? Because
Yeah.
when they get around their friends and they're not with you anymore and they're 18, 19, 21 years old and they go to their first strip club at 21, they don't know what that girl is really going through.
Yes.
So, what price
Yes.
are you willing to pay to protect your child right now when in the long run it could end up hurting somebody else? And
Yeah.
of course, they're not intentionally doing that.
No, oh
I mean,
gosh, no.
there are some men who are just, they're too shy to go out on dates and they just want to have sex. And they're
Hmm.
like, hey, this takes away the complication of it. And I
Right.
can just pay $100 and get a blowjob and go home. And they don't, they don't think of the damage.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're
Yeah.
not even, and some of them aren't even bad men.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're
Absolutely.
not.
Right.
Some of them are not even bad people.
Right. Right. Oh my gosh.
It's
Wow.
just easier for them.
Well, I'm glad you brought all that up because it's true. We've got to raise our children. And actually, we have a podcast episode. I'll have to look that up. I can't remember. I'll put the episode number in the show notes, but where we had a guest on, I had a guest on who talked about, they actually talk about raising, kids with good values and morals, and what the difference between right and wrong, and respecting each other's bodies and all of that. So I'll make sure I put that link in the show notes because that is so, so important for sure. So, well, Drema, I just am so grateful that you took this time
Mhm.
today. I am truly honored, and excuse me, it really means the world to me. I just really want my mission. I feel like my area that I excel in is awareness and just bringing
Mhm.
this to my listeners, because if I can educate someone who can recognize something and stop it from happening, or rescue, or what have you, I just feel like that's so important. So thank you
Right.
so much for your time today, and
Of
I just
course.
truly appreciate it. So
Of course.
well,
And if there's
I'm
anything that else I can do, then just let me know.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I will put all the links to the things that you mentioned in the show notes so people can go and find those resources and stuff. And by the way, for anyone, I just feel like that A21 Walk for Freedom is so important. And this year we walked in Williamsburg. When we walked, we didn't do Colonial Williamsburg, which makes so much sense that we actually were in the actual, surrounding
Mhm.
Williamsburg community. But I don't know about you, but I noticed as we were walking and we had our signs and stuff, because we're quiet for those listening who have never experienced it. You're walking in a single file line. We have our black abolish
Mhm.
slavery t-shirts on, and we're walking quietly, in silence, and just seeing the reaction with people driving by in cars, and just like kind of bringing it to their attention. And I think it's so important because, I mean, here we were in very, what I would consider an affluent community. And
Mhm.
this is where it's happening everywhere.
Mhm.
So, yeah. So thank you so much, Drema. I really, really appreciate your time and being
Of
willing
course.
to open up and share all of these things with us.
No problem.
All right. Take
All
care.
right. Thank you. Bye bye.
Mhm. Whew, that was a tough story, isn't it? It's hard to believe that those kinds of things are happening, but my friend, they are happening in every community across the country. As I mentioned in the episode, human trafficking is a $150 billion a year industry. These business, I mean, it is a business. It is far easier. They're making more money than drug traffickers, because drug traffickers can sell their product just one time, whereas human traffickers sell their product again and again and again. It is a heinous crime, and it's one that I think every single one of us needs to be aware of. I'm going to go ahead and put all the links in the show notes to anything above. If you have any questions, anything that you need some more clarity on, be sure to send me a DM or an email at tammy@footprintsofinspiration.com, and I will get you hooked up with whoever it is that you need to be hooked up with to get those answers for you. So friend, I know it's hard to think that, and probably not easy for me to say, I hope you enjoyed this episode, because this is a tough episode. It really is. I just hope you will celebrate and lift up praises today for Drema. I mean, wow, how incredible for her to be able to not just survive, but actually thrive after this, and to see the difference and the ways God is using her now is just incredible. And it's just so cool to see. So cool to see. So friend, listen, thank you so much for joining me today. I know this was a tough conversation, but I think it's one that we all need to be aware of. So friend, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and I'll see you back here next week for another episode of a Faithful God podcast.